Fire Commission work session for February 3rd, 2025.
Yeah.
Just testing me. All right, we'll just work on the agenda for tomorrow. We have a new commissioner with us to welcome. Brent. Forget my brain. What department?
Oh, Dixon.
Oh, man, Chief Careers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you bring some Katie's?
I did not.
Oh, then you got that right back. Okay, back alley, either one.
Yeah.
They're across the corner from each other. If y'all go to Dixon. In fact, the firemen should weigh 500 pounds. There's an ice cream shop in the parking lot, and they get unlimited ice cream. So I don't know how they don't all weigh 500 pounds. They make it right there. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll get to the legal report in a minute, but we do have they keep rotating lawyers, so we have our lawyer that'll be with us in April 12th. And now there too.
My name's Cameron Bowers. I'm just covering for Mayor Bass.
Supposedly she's going to have a baby. So for tomorrow, I'll do the prayer tomorrow pledge. Mr. Moore. I guess, Director, take the roll.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Boatright.
Here.
Commissioner Cobb.
Here.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Solomon.
Here.
Commissioner Windrow.
Here. We have a quorum. Jackson, that didn't happen. So you, in your package, you had a copy of the minutes. Sure you please glance over those for tomorrow's approval. Announcements, yes, and communications. West is vacant. I know East and Middle are here. Anything you want to share today, or you report for tomorrow?
We're up for tomorrow, or unless y'all want to hear it twice.
No, we'll wait for the official meeting. Let's see too. Jason and them got a problem at the academy, so hopefully they'll be here either later today or a fire school with no water, I guess, is problematic. Mary Beth, you want to wait till tomorrow or go ahead?
I'll just update everybody really quickly. Like Cameron said, she'll be covering the April meeting during that meeting. Otherwise, our rule package is coming back from the Attorney General's office. They either came back Friday or will come back today. So we will incorporate their suggested edits, and as soon as we file with the Secretary of State, hopefully this week, next week, that'll start the 90-day clock in order to make those rules efficient. Right now, we're under directions to continue to follow the rules as they're written prior to the change of the rule package. So just keep doing what we're doing here otherwise. Other than that, the rules subcommittee meeting met last time, and I think we'll have
Should that subcommittee probably meet again? I would like to see everybody see the rules before the subcommittee meets, so you can provide feedback.
Well, as soon as that is filed with the Secretary of State, and we have the final incorporation of those deadlines, that should be all.
We do need to add one to the rules.
Travis, so that might be a cookable meeting just for the meetings for the subcommittee. Sometime late this month or March. Let's get that in before we go together.
That's up to you guys and the director and whatever we put in. We just have to make sure we give a good public notice.
30 days?
All of that. The 30 days.
If we can shoot for that, then yes.
Is that all?
That's all I have. Thank you.
We know if Commissioner Bell is coming.
He will be here tomorrow.
Give you lots of lead time here.
I'll kind of run through what I've got, and then I'll go into more detail tomorrow. Staff changes as far as our west position. Currently, I think I've got about 13 applications for that. For the accreditation manager, we've had about 23 applications. So looking pretty hopeful that we may actually get somebody this time. And it will close on February 5th. far as EIP, the EIP stats, career-wise for 2024, 7,537. Volunteer was 891, which is down from last year. The test revalidation project that I've got going on, we currently revalidated 13 tests. I've got 8 more to complete before the end of March. And those are all single source. Now, that is not what's being administered to everybody yet, but that is where we are going. That was in the plan to go to single source, revalidating, making sure everything is the way it needs to be. So that's where I'm at on that project.
So currently, we're not single source today.
That is
Yes.
correct. Some are, some aren't.
We know what is single source.
Not currently off the top of my head. Reciprocity stats. We issued 1,142 and we received 568 applicants. We conducted 562 tests in 2024. We had we issued 5,372 certifications.
562 tests.
It's more set.
How, I know Gary, previous commissioner, had authorized you some more help with the office. Did that materialize, or it's hard to fill, or?
Laura has been gracious enough, Jennifer Peck has allowed her to come help me. So she's been helping a lot with some correlations of some of the test banks. There was talk of us possibly getting a 120-day temp from a lady that was retired executive director in reg boards. We haven't had any further conversation on that. I am working on a proposal to try and see if I can get at least 2 more positions within the FFC. And we'll see what happens with that.
The 8 tests to go for validation. How many days? I guess it's all about people. What's the average length of time to validate a test?
It depends on how large the test bank is. We recently just did an all-call at TPACO on January 22nd, and I think we ended up looking at 6 tests that day. Of the 6, 4 of them were completed. I ended up, FEMA helped me validate hazmat tech, so it has been done. I ended up having to meet with them a couple more times, and then I had some individuals help me with PDO and AADO as well. So again, it really depends on how large the test bank was. Hazmat tech was 550 questions. It took 20 days to get that. I'm going to try to do I'm going to try to do another all-call. I'm going to try to do and see what.
Do you have to do them on campus?
I have a large enough space there to utilize.
So does Michael at the training academy. Someone's coming to you, though, just trying to figure out a way to make this work.
We just started our year over. No, I don't know. We
No,
just
I'm
started
just-
our year over, so we are hammering in service hours and stuff. But if there's a Friday free that I can get, because they try to leave those open, I'll see if I can.
I mean, we can get the place. I'm just trying to think of somewhere other than some of us take the 2-hour drive out.
Yeah,
there.
sure.
Well, the ones that are left are instructor 1 and 2, which Stephen's going to take care of those. Fire investigator, fire inspector 1 and 2, our airport firefighter, and then firefighter 1. They got a good portion of the way through firefighter 1, but it needs to be finished up. It's not done.
So you brought up inspector. And in Kingsport, we talked about TFFO requesting to go to the book committee for changing their curriculum over to Jones and Parkland for MIPS. Which test are you validating on that?
And I'm kind of waiting on the book committee to decide what are we doing as far as are we doing the Bartlett, are we doing tip stuff. So also too, keep in mind that this year we are transitioning to 1030, and 1030 is told me they would have it to me in December. I still don't have it as of now.
Since you're most familiar, where's Metro with that? Were they interested in testing? That was their preference?
In talking with Nicholson and Chuck Swan and Chief Hutchinson, they're wanting to go to Johnson Farm as well.
Do we have any feedback? Another big board in Memphis yet? Maybe one of them will be here tomorrow. So I figured they'd chime in.
Just to add, training officers I've talked to a lot of mixed field positions, part one, too, right?
Well, this one is inspector probably. Metro was IFSTA. They
I just want to
did
ask, part one, we use Bill Martin.
Yes, sir. For the most part, everything will be Jones and Bartlett with the exception of PDO and ADO, inspector, depending upon what they decide. And I think inspector as well.
And remember, we didn't tell these departments that they had to swap to this book. If they ordered IFSTA at ABC Fire Department and they got 40 books that they just ordered last year, you can teach out of IFSTA. Just remember the test bank comes out of Jones Department for whatever category you're testing. So,
You would hope that the information's not that different. It's all coming.
It can be.
you would hope so.
You hope so,
And
because a
some of
knot's
these
a knot,
confused.
the ladder's a ladder, you know.
Simple stuff, that is, but some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Also, something I forgot to add on there, Todd and I went to Alabama Fire College on Friday. Had a great time, great experience with Director Matt down there. Was talking to him about some of the practicals that we talked about at the last meeting. So they do require practicals to be completed prior to testing. Now that practicals are not always graded before the written test is done, but they are submitted prior to the test. So just to kind of expound upon something that we did talk about last time.
All of their practical.
From what I gathered, yes.
Oh, yeah, because they'll be practicals that week for the class.
Yeah, they do it during the class itself. For the officer series.
Do they hand submit them or do they have a platform that they submit them?
Everything is submitted, they have a Moodle platform. So everything is submitted digitally through a Moodle platform. So
Yeah, they're years ahead of us as far as structure. Partial mistake.
also something else that we're working on within the FFC office is we're working on building a web form for requesting of practicals and also submissions so that student will no longer have to reach out to the coordinators directly to request a practical. They will go to the form, fill that out and request it. It will be sent to the student. Once the student has completed it, they'll go back into the another web form and submit it for grading purposes. And at that point, we can send it out in a workflow to one of the coordinators to be graded. So that way there's no more confusion on who's in the office and who we need to send stuff to. That way it's the same practice, whether it's in Memphis or in Bristol.
When do you foresee that going live?
We've already started drafting on the web form, so I would say hopefully in the next month or two, if that. But I will send out a memo as soon as I can send it out as well to the people that are affiliated with some of the chief organizations, so we can get that information out. Obviously, there'll be some leniency if people are still reaching out, but we do want to kind of gear them and guide them to that practice, so that way it's consistent and there's no confusion on who do we need to contact.
Some of the old business you touched on just slightly. We have the 23 applications for accreditation.
Yes.
So
I said it closed.
suicide prevention, actually, I guess it would be under old business. We do have the submission here. I'm not going to hear today. Maybe it's wrong. Yeah, okay. We have the document. From Vance Rowe, I believe. Yeah. The other thing is, he's still. I understand what he's saying. I wish he would. He still didn't correlate it. And we've got some submissions tomorrow that have 3 pages of correlation sheet. And then he's still asking for this an hour without a correlation sheet. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a legitimate ask. It's just the fact about consistency. I mean, it's discretion. You have it in your packet. Print it off. I don't know that it's really all that, but it's 8 pages long.
Calming stormy seas.
Yep. It's just an hour, so put a whole lot of time and effort into it, but again, as I was and we've said it before, and always say it. I like to think we always default to the firefighter. Todd heard this speech today. We always default to the firefighter as the commissioner. We always have. It's kind of the culture. But then we also have to, our job, especially as the chairman and the director, is guard the commission's integrity long term. Like with salary supplement, if you find somebody that's missing 4 hours, okay, just let it go through. Well, that's fine until the comptroller finds it, and then it's not. Then it's not fine. Really, it falls on the chairman and the director. And it's hard to fire a volunteer. It's not too hard to fire the pay person. You know what I mean? So I hope everybody understands that in the fire service, there is, if we require, who's doing these tomorrow? Tennessee Homeland Security has a new public safety person doing our classes. He sends in a 3-page correlation sheet, and then we let somebody else send in no correlation. That's not consistency, then, continuity. What sets you up for trouble? And again, I hope that's what the message I want to get across fire service. We have to protect both sides. We want to help the firefighter, but we don't want to sacrifice salary supplement for the other 7,000 people that are getting it, if that makes sense. We have to protect both sides of the fence from this, especially from my seat. So I try to always be consistent with that. This really must be good. That means Tom's means we get to go. If the chief's leaving, that means we gotta go. They're leaving. See, that's what I'm saying. Let's go. I don't have lights anymore. Follow. They took my truck away. So we'll talk about that class tomorrow. We're ready to discuss that as the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
also under old business, I don't think it made it to the book committee. But it was and we touched on it just a little bit here momentarily ago about these switching of curriculums from IPSA to Jones Bartlett for inspector.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Yeah, so TPEC approached the commission on switching curriculums.
Where we did last time. We sent that out to everybody across the state of Tennessee that wanted to respond in an open as the textbook committee. And I'm gonna say, Brad tally it all up. There was about 30 ones. Out of those, we went through and looked at, because they would put questions in there too. Some were for, some were against. And then we did an overall, this is what the consensus was, and that's kind of the book that we went. But we also asked our team counterparts what they had used in the past, or if there were recommendations, because we didn't want to just take training officers and officers and stuff from across the state. We wanted the firefighters that were coming in and taking the test, especially like firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and HMA and HMO. So as one of the representatives on that committee, I don't have a problem changing anything as long as you come to me with a showing me a due cause of why or for what reason would you like to change that, and then everybody votes on unanimous there. Or if there is a vote that's put in front of the meeting.
Yeah, basically they came to us in Kingsport and with a full layout of the reasons being. And then we made the motion to send it to the book committee, book subcommittee. So that's where it landed.
Okay, I haven't seen
With that said, you want to leave that in old business and then the committee itself under J new business?
Yes.
Just see under old business, all of them will take action.
Right.
So back up a second, on business to item B, really the work session is to hash out any concerns to make tomorrow's meeting more expeditious. I mean, there was a pretty lengthy PowerPoint that came with that in the packet. Is that enough correlation to satisfy us? It's such a generic question.
They're looking for 1 hour.
1 hour, we deducted an hour, I want that hour back.
Yeah, because when we took that hour away, they didn't have any information. It was just the name of the class.
And for all we knew, they did an hour of yoga during the conference.
But he came back in the email verified that, yes, he is a yoga instructor, but this wasn't for yoga. So,
Now, did he ever, the motion was for him to provide you a correlation sheet. We gave him 15 hours. Did you ever see any correlation sheets?
What I sent you is
That's
what I
what we got.
received.
So we still didn't get it. But he may not know what a correlation sheet is. If you're not in an FBA every day, you don't know.
I want to ask specifically asked correlation in FBA standard.
Okay, because that's what Commissioner Green's motion was. I don't think we got one. I mean, we got information. I don't think we got what we asked.
I can try to reach out to him one more time before tomorrow.
Pretty much all we got was just,
So,
and that was it.
but did it have any references? Even if it had a reference, I'd make the strict, again, we'll default to the firefighter. Stretch.
in one of these slides, he doesn't come out and say NFPA 1500, but when you read what the topics on that slide is, it coincides with 1500. So, there's another one. Mental health.
Unfortunately, by default, we gave him 15 hours. Well, although it did say, once he provided the correlation sheets. Again, an option is to give him credit pending the submission of those correlation sheets. Kind of like holding a certificate of arrears. I'm not against the class at all. Just, I'm strongly in favor of consistency across all submissions.
It's almost like, looking at it, it's almost like a sales pitch for him to come teach you yoga.
I wouldn't say. So, yeah, the motion could be, yes, we'll still approve this pending correlation sheet that would require everybody. I mean, we make Terry Rochelle, whoever submits has to submit those.
And
That's the consistency.
That's still what it is.
Yeah.
And if not, he's just going to continue to get the hires.
Hey, I've received the text message. They're having a really hard time hearing on Teams, so turn it off here if you don't mind. Speak a little
There's
louder.
people watching.
Yes,
2,
yes,
Jeff,
3.
Jeff.
3.
Okay.
You know, this is something I'm going to try to make sure that we start doing so that we have record of what is going on for people to view later on.
Right. Sometimes we miss it notes. All right. So we got to speak loudly and clearly.
Yes, sir.
And identify who's speaking.
Not today, we'll let you tomorrow. Make motions. If there's no motions today. All right. Now, new business, West Tennessee and Middle Tennessee audits that have since been completed since the last meeting. West Tennessee,
We completed 4 work.
and you're done.
Yes.
We are done.
We did one this morning, and we lacked 4. So I would, yeah, they're gonna do one to. Lawrenceburg's gonna bring their stuff here. So. Somebody. That'd probably be the long term.
East Tennessee,
I wasn't even gonna mention it.
throw it in there.
No, we got a boy down there. He's rubbing it on things. So after Lawrenceburg, we'll lack Murfreesboro, Gallatin, and Fayetteville. They couldn't be any farther apart. Murfreesboro could turn into a single day, just by numbers. Even if we do 10%, that's 20. I think they submitted probably 200. You can't.
They do use vector target solutions.
Also,
Yeah,
should speed it up.
How fast was mine?
very quick.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Middle Tennessee reps, and we're the ones not done. Yeah, we definitely want to be done before we get together. If not sooner. Yeah, don't hold that over my head. I've done 7 of the 11. I tried to carry the torch here. He can't do his own. We might be able to call. I know Beeman will be here. I can call him and say, hey, bring your stuff. Get 2 done while we're here. There's no prohibition about it being a central location. I don't know how central Jackson is, but I'll check with him, see when he's coming down. That would save us a lot of mileage too for the commission. Then jump up to Murfreesboro and finish Fayetteville. All right, so those are the 4 that are left. So we'll add the 4 and the 1. At least we didn't have any problems in all Middle Tennessee. I don't know about the 4 and West. So they should be able to be approved as a batch. So.
Yeah, we're not gonna approve ours as fast as mine.
Oh, you
So
guys
we'll do ours separate.
3 and 1. You gave the number of EIP. We'll need to vote. Do you have a batch ready to pay, or are we not that far along?
We have 6 that are ready to pay. Arlington, Athens, Bedford, Oliver, Cleveland, and Spring Hill.
And I think the last couple of years, we've done blanket batch. If they get some batch ready,
Yeah.
go.
That way.
I know, F&A, finance doesn't see 1, 1, 2, 1.
I think they would like to see them in batches of like 1 billion or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it won't take long.
Yeah.
Get one Metro or Murfreesboro Franklin. Probably get close. Franklin's got all this high rollers. Yeah, you can get that at home, right?
That's exactly.
So we'll, that will be, EIPB, EIP subcommittee report. Just the 3 of you met today,
We did.
and we want to add.
2.5.
Yeah,
I was over here.
we want to add,
Yeah, so. we
Vice
need to-
Chairman Scott.
We need to add Chairman Scott, Vice Chair as a
On
3rd
that.
member.
on that committee. And if anybody, this is for the audience's sake, our numbers are going the wrong direction from the marching orders we have from the state administration, being the lieutenant governor and governor. So how do we make this work? Now, some of it, if you weren't at the meeting in Kingsport, we talked about can be a cadence. If you have a full-time career training officer at cadence, but you've got organizations like the Tennessee Firemen's Association that's been helping with those that can't get a department to get in the program. The Firemen's Association will submit you your paperwork. But that's some of the things that this committee is going to look at. Is it a documenting problem? Is it ability to get the training problem? Is there a better way to get those numbers up? And nothing's off the table. And you weren't there. I can't believe this came out of my mouth. But maybe there is a volunteer firefighter certification. Won't do you any good for career path. It won't do you any good to train. It won't be. There won't be reciprocity to Alabama with this.
We had a great conversation earlier.
And if you'd like, I'll cover those
Yeah.
notes. We met today from 10 a.m. until approximately 11:15. And so one of the main things that came out of it was referring back to the AHJ to define what their firefighter really is. Because as we know in the volunteer departments, not every one of them is going to be an interior fireman. One's going to be, they may have a handful of drivers that will never see the inside of a structure fire. Where you're heading. Okay. Or, they would rather be outside humping hose or being an auxiliary support person in that department. So the firefighter status should actually fall on the AHJ as far as what they classify, right? To do away with the firefighter 1 certification, which coming from a certifying board, we don't want to say stuff like that. But when you have volunteer departments that have no inkling of wanting to do anything hazmat, and they don't do hazmat, for one of their personnel to go to firefighter 1, the requirement of having that HMA and HMO really is a huge hiccup in their succession to be able to obtain EIP, especially in that 5-year window or 60-month window that we placed on this. With the 1664 live burn, as we know, the 16-hour is almost replicated in the 64-hour class. And so in the rule, the way it states, they have to have 16-hour, 64, and live fire. So there's not the option of an or in there. There's all 3 have to have a certificate to be able to be paid out in the EIP. So if the department's going ahead and just moving right into a 64-hour class, then that person would not have a 16-hour certificate. And so, because it's lumped into their basic firefighting class. So that's creating a hiccup right now for people being qualified to receive EIP because they may not have had that 16-hour class. Right, or because they're supporting or just engineers. And then the final piece was to eliminate the pre-approved course for volunteers, so they don't have that October 1st deadline, but go back to like what we did the first year, and that's to accept all documented training over that calendar year for them to be able to submit that for their EIP or their VA EIP. And then we did also talk about the Tennessee firefighter or Tennessee volunteer firefighter certification. If we would look at something along those lines, live in instead of having the firefighter 1 certification. Yeah.
Volunteer firefighters.
It was both less.
Yeah, it was. And one thing I added to the bill in it too was, if you look at the police department post training, and then you also look at this new EMS stipend and their training, they're doing the exact same thing. They're just taking 30 or 40 hours, whatever their bill requires, and they're turning that hours in, and that's what they're taking. That's basically the same thing that we're talking about with volunteers. And that was the whole intent of that program, was to get them their in-service stipend. So
rules are written is that without a program, it's hard to own. So there's no, and that's the whole problem with putting it under us,
Right.
is the audit trail.
Well, and so when we talk about that, we don't audit, we don't physically in-person audit volunteer departments.
They could be drawn. They're in the pod, right? I mean,
Historically, it was.
if Williamson
audited
Fire
in-house.
Rescue gets drawn, they're supposed to be, by the comptroller's rules, they would be in the pod.
Right.
Drawn.
And so historically, they've been
But-
audited on submission because like for David Doris, if he's taking one single person and filing their EIP through the Tennessee Firemen's Association, the Tennessee Firemen's Association doesn't have a program that's been submitted for audit.
Actually, we do.
Well, they do.
They're not using it, I'm using some form. I do have it.
Right.
But so, I mean, when you look at that, how many of the volunteers that are getting it because it's already an approved program and not a substitution?
I would rather they be in the police substitution.
I said that too in my meeting, but,
With doing away with the pre-approval program, though, it takes away the need for the substitution. Because everything they turn in is a go.
But back to consistency, then why can't Memphis do that in Nashville? Why they need to submit a program?
Why can't we change it for
It's
them?
back to that audit path that's in the rules. Now, we change the rule. But we can't go so far that there are no rules.
It's a penalty of perjury. The EMS and the post, they're doing it as well. So why? Yes.
The EMS,
Yes.
EMS.
Well, they just go get your own hours. And submit.
Yeah, or it can be your department hours, it can be your regular training.
Then that's a rule change.
When you submit your roster for post for who's on there in terms of year, the chief attests to it as well.
Didn't you
Which
say
is
no
what we do
check?
now.
I know,
No, not notarized.
Well, it's not notarized. Yeah, it's not
No,
notarized.
it's
Yeah,
it's where-
which is what we do now on the fire. I still have to sign that attestation stating that my however many guys have met their hours.
So, what are we proposing? So what are we proposing? Just the substitution board?
We're talking about the removing of the pre-approval program, not just for VEIP, but for career as well.
Under
Yes.
Which would take a rule change.
Yes. It would.
That'd
it
be
would
the
be
first
back
rule we
to-
could start on.
Minimizing and really condensing the rules down.
Try to make it simple.
Yes. It ultimately, as far as audit purposes, it would fall under penalty of perjury. If, we did an audit and a person was said to have 30 or 40 hours regarding whether they were volunteer or career, if they're missing their documentation, their rosters and whatnot, then we would handle that as a penalty of perjury.
We have about 12 training officers in this room right now, both career and volunteer. If we did away with the October 1st submission deadline and having you submit a canned program for education and staff, how much would that free up for you?
For a department of 106 people. Right now, I'm not gonna lie, I submit at least 40 hours meeting all rules. I put dates, I have no idea they're gonna be right. My chief and my command staff had a meeting last week. He said, David, next week, I need this class done. By your rules, I can't do that class, so I have a 30-day notice. Our department is moving so fast, and most everybody is. I cannot tell you what I'm gonna need to teach in October, much less if I'm available those days to teach it. Right. I'll go back to, none of y'all are sitting up there. One, I believe, 2015, I asked, why can't y'all put your meeting on here instead of around that? the way you could do that. We have no clue what training is going to require. Sometimes until it hits. So last year's in-service program, 6 classes, we weren't even believe it, and were replaced by other classes throughout the year. It's just a duplication. And for 2007, been told it needs to be approved up front, so we come into a random audit in your class. I have never seen a commissioner show up in classes. I say that once. They will go down one time.
Well, and I'm like, y'all, we're ever changing nonstop with us. And I mean, I might decide at like last year, December, the week before December, we called old school and that moves some other stuff around that I wouldn't expect. Right? It's hard.
And from an office perspective, like, these departments are constantly sending in changes, and that is taxing on my staff. Because we have to stop what we're doing, go in and make the edits and changes, where if they could just go in, put their submissions in, log their hours and their people and be done, that's a load off of my office.
So what you're saying though is that once they complete the class, they're submitting that class into a cadence
Yes.
as complete.
Yes.
Okay. So that way we're not duplicating. Yep. I agree, because as a training officer prior to, it drove me nuts that not only am I uploading this class before October 1st, but then I'm turning around and uploading it again once I complete the class. And, now because I use Target Solutions, I'm now uploading it into a third spot. So, yeah.
And this also, speaking of Target Solutions, like, we've been battling with them as far as the online courses of how to label that, because they want to blanket label it as education incentive pay. Well, your department may differ from his and his and his and so on. And that makes it very difficult for how we label that, because everybody may choose to do different courses. Whereas if you just put it in, if that's your part of your training, the conclusion of the year, you submit, you did X amount of hours on vector training.
Well, I can tell you now, as one of the beta departments that does vector with Acatus, it is now mapping to education incentive when you do that activity, that live training. So Tina's seeing it on her side, and so that's helped quite a bit. That really has. Yeah, because in vector, I could actually take that one class and not only assign it as education incentive, but I now can go ahead and label it also as officer training or facility training or whatever. So that way my ISO credit points are going where they need to go too.
So even if we do that, unintended consequences, it may not happen. We've not expended the money in the last 5 years that is allotted by the House and Senate. Could we run out of money, and then what do we do? I mean, you can always go in for a budget amendment, but if there's no money, do the last 10 departments that submitted not get, because if you ease the burden, the volume will go up. Cup may run out of money. How do we do that, Josh?
I think there's a little bit of a risk that on the career side, but I assume most of them are better. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of growth on that side.
Shouldn't.
On the volunteer side, I don't know how they changed the budget, but we were at 20 or 25% of what was allocated. So it would be a miracle if we could
Hit
go
100.
Yeah.
Because even if we did away with like part of that up front,
They still got 16th money.
but then they still got to meet their certifications.
Yeah, that's my other question. Are we going to continue the 1620,
Right.
1664 if we have a volunteer cert by the 5th year?
So I mean, yeah, it could grow, but it may not grow as much as you're thinking that it might grow,
I just want to
It may be a slow growth.
avoid it. I hate to tell the last 10 departments, oh, the bucket's empty. You went to the trouble to submit, but you're not getting it.
Weren't we tasked with increasing this?
Yes.
Yes, that's our task. Well, it's shrinking.
And so if our task is to increase it, that would be someone else's problem to fix it.
Yeah. But to increase it, so
And
Then we
then what
run
we're
out.
doing is
Then we'll see what
putting
happens.
money- we're putting main firefighter department. The other question I have, right now, we're talking, maybe combine everything, but we don't combine everything. Where does the combination department?
I mean, if we do away with the pre-approval program, then it's gone for everybody, career, volunteer, combo, everybody. It would be the same as far as like whatever levels of certifications you leave on career, then, you know, that's, you're still leaving it firefighter too.
Our combination department has a 64-hour program. Volunteers got to get 30 hours somewhere during the year. We reteach those classes every other Saturday to make sure we don't miss them. That's how our combination goes.
And also too, I can't imagine, I mean, just from talking with some of these chiefs and training officers that, you know, 30 hours, 40 hours is more than achievable. You know, especially if we open it up to where they could start now counting, you know, everything, pump training, you know, weekend training, meetings, whatever they're having as part of their educational center.
Yeah.
Question for you, that, because we were discussing opening it up or not opening it up, where would combination fall if we didn't open it wide open?
Well, like I said, the few combination departments I know, Ashland City, Pleasant View, Nolensville, we put the program out there and the volunteers have the calendar for the whole year. They try to make 30 hours off that calendar. If they don't, they're not eligible. That's my combination department. I'm not an all volunteer department. That Josh can probably answer them better. I don't. Do they do the Tuesday night training? Do they do the?
That's how I do mine. I set out the same, it's just easier for me, Rick, when I came into this, I do a training calendar of 60-something hours. Everybody's got to get their 30 or their 40. But
Some of them.
it's on them to show up. And the live fires I host, I'll say, a lot of the departments have no idea about the state money or don't have a representative to help with it. So I've been sending them to Firemen's Association. I think you would have more people if you kind of work with them. I mean, we have to decide what the goal is for the money, because they're doing it for nothing.
You just said something that I've been meaning to follow up, Jeff, and them aren't here. We as a commission have a live fire verification. So if Munford puts in for, they've got a house to burn, they want to do a firefighter one burn, and they send in to the office for a live fire verification number. Some departments are being told that number is not any good towards their live burn. I said, I'm going to throw a red flag on that if it's being told. Unless there was a change I missed on this commission, they're saying that fire doesn't count towards their live fire. Well, it may not. We may not have the below grade or the propane fire, but those are in firefighter too. And I'm hearing from people in Williamson County that they're saying unless you do the live burn at TFAC, it doesn't count. Well, that obliterates our form. That may be bogus. That may be one person. David?
The representative for Fire Association. Well, let's talk this morning, so that last week. I hear it from the entire state. Nobody knows what counts as live fire, how long live fire is. The emergency rules made it 10 years. 10 years. Those rules expired. Chapter 4 says 3 to 5. Chapter 7 says something else. People across the state are being treated differently depending on who looks at their paperwork. People are being turned down for their money. People are being turned down for their testing based on live fire requirements. While we're on that, one of the topics this morning was the requirement for the 1664 live fire on the third year ended December 31st. Volunteers did not get 3 years. They got 2 years. The rules took place July. Nobody knew what the rules were until after December 1st. And 2 years later, they're told December 31st. We have a few that spoke up here today, a large number from across the state who are not eligible this year. They need to get 1664 and a live fire in less than 2 years.
That's where I was talking about
The other problem, I have chiefs call me to tell me the academy said, if you did this somewhere else, it don't count. You can't come to us.
I've heard that's been happening a lot.
Business. Whether that's true or not,
I've heard it in weeks.
I thought Jason Park October Hill. But I get those calls from across the entire state. I was told I can't do Life Private Academy because I didn't do their 16 and 64. My first question is your training approved and dedicated? Yes. Misinformation is the problem.
But I think that's why you're seeing the number decline and not go up, is because there's so many variables, nobody knows. Heck, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do.
The subcommittee this morning and Thursday and Friday, Bill, the director, train officer meeting, our Thursday and Friday meeting. Y'all know as well as I do, I'm not going to rock the anyway, but previous directors, when rules are voted on, that we expect to be done by the end of the year, put it out very publicly. You don't need CPR anymore. It'll be done by December. You don't need to worry about this. You've got 3 years for that. When the chief, the training officer, the employee better, can't come to these meetings here. I've got 3 years. That's 3 years.
And so one of the things that David brought up was the whole, where we dropped the CPR requirement for across the board. Well, that was anticipation of the rules going into effect prior to December 31st.
So the communication was put out specifically by the director, but even by people in this room, is what about CPR this year, last year?
For 2024.
And the email went out last week of it's got to be in a cadence or we're going to deny you. Yeah. There's nobody knows what the rules are.
Well, there was no anticipation,
Right.
not defense.
No.
These rules wouldn't be in place by now.
You understand?
Right now, where are your directions? All the rules have in about 90 days, we will have new rules in the AG's office.
Right.
But it's not retro.
It's not retro.
We decide which rules we're going to follow.
The direction from Commissioner Bell at 11 o'clock today was to follow the rules as they're written until the new rules are in place.
You like me to go through and highlight the rules we're not following?
I mean, I'm sure.
Well, to talk about the rules that we're following or not following. Lieutenant Gary, we were on the phone for 45 minutes the other day. In rule, it states that you have to submit an application for a practical exam 2 weeks prior to that exam. But to take a written test, it does not state you have to have an application in 2 weeks prior to that test.
It says in all documentation. Great generic. I had to go back and look at it. But the rules are written as if we're still filing out all the old paper documents. They have never been updated for a case. I want to get ahead of that because we're on BIS.
I bring it back in for.
Well, and in a rule, because I don't think this is changing the upcoming rule. I've had several questions about this, and it will affect, really affects two applications we have for tomorrow. There's no, Mary Beth may have to correct me. I can't find in the TCA that they have to be 18 or a U.S. resident. It's only in the VIEP, the EIP rule. It's the only place I can find that.
Yes. And we've.
So we've been binding that. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad bind. It's just, the only reason it's come into play, we've got a request from 2 high schools tomorrow. So the majority of those students probably aren't 18. So what are we going to be able to approve for? My question. I know I'm jumping ahead. But
Well, in the examinations chapter, it does state that they have to take that.
so what?
Page 1 of chapter 7, all of those requirements for the most part, I really have no way in my office to verify that any of that.
They're a citizen, they're 18, they're high school
Non-felon
graduate.
background checks, we're not able to do that. That's part of the attestation form. It's
The alias J.
yeah, but it's wrote in there.
But I'm guessing, because this date predates me. I've been hanging around here since '96.
So
Something was a problem somewhere back down the line. Got this in here. Every OG's got somebody's name to it.
Those have been the rules that
I was training officer in 96 and everything.
I have personally brought these schools up. Commissioners have not wanted to change.
I'm not saying they're bad or good, I just, somebody said it's in the TCA, well, no, the TCA just says that this body can make rules.
Does the 18 come from OSHA?
My understanding is that the original version of these rules, a lot of it came from the way that the rules were written. This was law, in law enforcement, they have the ability to do free employment package where we see all that stuff. On the fire side, we really don't have that. We're trusting the word of the chief that if the commission's will was to make it different, I don't think there's a statutory reason to put it. But it would be a question of, do we want to take off the high school graduate, not a felon, those things, or do we want to take off eligible to work in the United States at 18 years old? Because if we or all of it, because I think that eliminating the rule completely opens us up to some liability. I'm not putting an 18-year-old in life for a 16-year-old problem. That's for y'all to decide. But that initial version of that rule is a mirror image of the law enforcement rule, and I think that's how it is. And I think nobody's ever questioned that. We just have been putting that responsibility on the hired team to determine whether or not they trust it. They tested the commission of that accurate.
But back to that ethics level, do you want a felon in Mrs. Smith's house with her jewelry laying out when it would be easy to pick, but I can play both sides of that.
And we
Can I give you an
do
example?
have some of the things we've talked about with like felonies and things like that. There is some rights that you have as a felon to come in front of the commission and petition. It would depend on if that crime was correlated to the firefighting industry. So if you're an arsonist, the commission may deny somebody get a firefighter on certification. But if your felony is a domestic assault, then that could be up to the commission. But those people are not currently, we don't know that right now. So if somebody's been specifically denied by the commission, that's when they could go through that assessment to see if they have that right. But right now, we're not in a position to even know if those individuals have them.
So as a training chief, my city, my chief, our personnel does that. If they say they passed a background check, I have no idea. I don't have a right to run one. I've got signed paperwork. My chief doesn't know. He has signed paperwork. 2015, I was requested to bring a waiver to you with the gentleman they hired. The recruit school walked up. He said, I need Friday off. He told him how we did recruit school. Because he was on felony drug charges, testified to DEA, spent 6 years in prison, and was still on probation. I walked in the middle of Tennessee, had a waiver on the agenda, 2 questions asked, they gave him a waiver.
Back to one of the things you said earlier, it should be, we would hope that the AHJ vets who they're sending.
We fixed our process. It was one of those second chance programs that we was affected fire. But every chief training officer I talk to across the state says you should do the side who they hire.
Because you can hire, just then they can't get certified, which means why'd you hire?
So to your point of can't get certified, there's nothing in our rule that says that you cannot pass and certify as a felon. The only thing where it talks about felon is in EIP.
But I think across the state, at least my history through the years, they've enforced this on the hiring practice, thinking it was in TCA. I know 2 volunteers in Williamson County were denied recently because they weren't U.S. citizens. They said, well, there's no point in you even getting to the system. You can't progress. Well, that's not true. They just can't get salary stuff. They can progress all they want. There's no prohibition on getting certification. It's only on getting salary stuff.
So why would we want to put that?
That's why I'm asking it today.
I'm going to quote Chief Biggs. I hate he's not here anymore.
Here,
It's really off. His statement when asked that, and he was sitting in your chair was, you can hire him, that means you have to pay him. And that's the way we opened it that day.
do that now. I've hired several guys from California that don't want to go back and take firefighter 1, firefighter 2. That's fine. I count your training. I just can't give you EIP under these rules. Because you're not Tennessee, you're not Sacramento Pro Board. Because you were certified 20 years ago. I hadn't gone back and done it. I don't have those.
As far as the 18-year-old, Jason Sparks is what started that program in Middle Tennessee, which I approved in high school. Problem, as me and him talked back then, was brought up in these meetings, and we're gonna have these seniors graduating and want to start getting jobs that I can hire because it's not 18 yet. I can't really do anything.
But it's not in the certification rule, even though we've imposed it. It's only in the EIP rule. It's not in TCA. It's not in the rules that deal with defining a firefighter.
Do enough to hire. We decide to hire.
If you let it.
Another hire unless you're 18.
And I didn't mean to go way down this rabbit hole. We're in a work session. Again, we've got 2 items tomorrow that really, there's nothing to approve per se. What does it do for them if we approve it, other than have our stamp on it? They can't certify, they can't. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just, in curiosity me, because we've got that. Now, some seniors turn 18, I turned 18 in March last year, but that was all, I'd shut down by then. I wasn't a very good high school student to begin with. But,
Just not play a part and start the clock. They'll take their stuff. But so they're still eligible to come out at 18 years old at graduation. If they graduate and they turn 18 after, they're still eligible to go to live burn based on the fact that they've already got.
right, you got some training.
Actually, as the rule states, it says those are the days you're old for the SIM program.
These are
So, yeah, both these hospitals ask you to speak on their behalf if it's 7 hours away. The commission, so initially, both these hospitals, which were in Sun County, they had submitted court approval. And they were rejected because they're not a fire department. So I had instructed them that this is the correct path for them to go. Their goal is to have seniors walk across the stage and be issued a certificate from the hospital saying they completed these 3 courses. And if they're a volunteer fireman and their senior year, once they turn 18, they'll be eligible for different commission tests. The end goal is to walk across the stage with HMA commission certification. And if you all approve this, I think the next plan is to go for HMO. And their goal would be to walk across the stage with their firefighter 2. And the reason why they're doing this is because the commission has already approved for another hospital.
So in chapter 4, it also states for under examinations, number 3, an applicant shall be at least 18 years of age in order to take certification exam.
Now, something somebody said earlier, part of that might be eased, but otherwise you're going to, for a high-risk event, a live birth, where a parent's going to have to sign. You're adding complexity when they're not 18. They're not legal.
Commissioner Boatright brought up a good point. Is it OSHA standards for 18 being an SCBA?
Be in a hazardous environment.
An IDLH environment required. That may be what's.
And that's what stops them from getting a live burn.
But if they can get the training, they just can't certify until they're 18. I don't know why we want to hold somebody back. Because we had this discussion before, and my husband, when he was in high school, went to classes and tested when he turned 18 in fire service.
So just to be clear, they're not requesting a lot of. Just a
They will start your clock.
But then they've already got their training under their belt, so when they do turn 18, they can progress and test.
Again, I don't know that anything in our rules would include an AHJ. Now, they're not going to accept them at Bell Buckle. But, for East Tennessee, Kingsport might let them do their live burn, for example. Kansas City.
I'm assuming like this is going to be mostly for our seniors in high school.
No, both of these schools, they start this program as freshmen.
Freshmen.
So they're taking the educational classroom.
Correct. Both of these the fire science program. And they're sending these kids through, they're getting all this knowledge, they're getting all of this knowledge. They're getting no certification, they're getting no, they're not able to issue a volunteer high school certificate like a volunteer, or like a volunteer fire department force approval can issue a certificate.
But then when they turn 18, they'd be eligible to sit for tests and take library. So all they want is approval through the class.
Well, but the thing about the citizen of the United States, say,
The rules have to change on that. We have to.
but that's only an EIP.
Right.
Well, it's also in test.
We
For
discussed
whatever
that in
reason.
the finance division that, the subcommittee, that across the board at the conference and insurance, we have to change that language to read legally eligible states. So that'll come from the general office. Basically, the bylaws that we work. That's the one thing that is one of the overall.
But is it enforceable now?
I can't, all I've been told is what I have to change the rules to, which is legally eligible.
Well, I mean, I've got one of my best volunteer firefighters is actually going to do the training. I tell him every year he's ineligible, even though he's got legal status.
Well, from an auditor's perspective, it's not on the check sheet. Okay, can you show me everybody's 18 years old and a U.S. citizen? We don't ask that. We're again relying on the HJ to put up a appropriate. Now, could somebody get burned by it? Maybe. It's not in the audit trail per se. And again, her office can't check it. Not really. I mean, they could, you probably add another hour to each application.
It would take forever if we check it. And some of that stuff we just don't even have, we can't run background checks.
No, you don't have NCIC in your office.
And how do I know you're proficient in English? That's what we get.
But at least those of us that participated, it would be hard for us to, it would be hard for me to sign that.
Right. You know.
But if Commerce put out a position that says until we get control change, we don't think it's enforceable, which I'm pretty sure is not legal. That would actually help some of our folks that are doing the thing.
I'm just been told that until these rules change, there's nobody that down something. I can't speak for the whole.
From my understanding, this is a school wanting to teach basically the 1664 that has no words. Those exact programs have already been approved. High schools. Already.
I'm not saying we would, it just brings up bigger issues in our rules. I'm going 747.
We'll make sure.
Well, and it's affecting my own department. I have a guy, a young man, it's really good. He's not a U.S. citizen. He shows up more than any volunteer, current volunteers show up. But in digging in the rules, my question for asking is that anywhere else, it says in the test, it says,
Chapter 4 says.
but that's for the test, to take a written test. And the EIP says it to be eligible for EIP. That's not NTCA.
Does it not say you have to be a college, high school graduate?
That's in EIP too.
They can take hazmat awareness, they can take hazmat, start to 64, their senior year. Once they turn 18, they can take that statewide burn.
As long as they've taken approved pre-course, which these would be approved after tomorrow. Because right now, C says be a high school graduate or possess equivalents. That's to participate in EIP.
Have to do more research. Just real quick, which they did. There are no age-specific limits for the self-trained big background.
And I'm sitting there, I'm on OSHA's website too, that's what I've been
So I was
doing.
just
There's
asking.
no- It just says it's up to the local department on whether or not.
And we have to have a training that's required under 1910.
I think that all originated fire school allowing you had to be 18 years of age to go through the lifeguard and fire school. And I think it's where all this derived from, if I remember.
And when Director Sparks came and asked for his volunteer department to be approved for this, when he presented that first school as his school or whatever, The other caveat to that was this, you're correct. And I explained this to Commissioner Boatright, because he specifically told us he had reviewed this and went to the insurance company, BFIS, to confirm with them that they would do it, and they said they would start it at 17.
And that's the problem that I think a lot of departments face is in your county, city restaurant. Because a lot of times when people have questions like that, I'll say, that's really not up to the commission, ask your county attorney, and if you never hear from them again.
And that is what they did. They went to their county and BFIS said at 17, we would allow you to do this training and cover your people if they were hurt at 17 years. So that's the other caveat to that. That had nothing to do with the commission saying you can't do this. That was the insurance company and the county so that they could cover their people. And his people actually graduated from that school. And there were 6 of them. And as far as I know, as of today, all 6 of them now have.
Yes.
That's firefighters in the state.
I remember offering to do a live fire for them.
So remember the insurance side of it.
So I took us down a rabbit hole that got us way off. Volunteer Educational Incentive Program changes to make it, to get the participation. And y'all don't only have one meeting. So
Right.
I'm sure you need a couple more meetings, maybe another 1 or 2 before Gatlinburg. Because by the time we get to Gatlinburg, these current rules should, if not in effect, they'll be getting close. 90 days.
People know what they are. Final version will be waiting.
So we can start working on a new rule-making process and maybe hopefully not take 2 years. Because I think we know, we did such a major rewrite this time, it shouldn't be so cumbersome. It will target VEIP in the next session to make it more user-friendly. Because if we don't, we're gonna be down, what was the number you said? For-
891 is what we've had for
2024.
You have the previous year.
Yeah.
900.
It's steadily gone.
Yeah, I do.
I would say probably 50 to 60.
Keep in mind, a lot of them are back here rejected.
Of that number.
That's a good question, and that's my question. We've done a waiver for multiple things since I've been several years. If we not do a waiver to take care of this time span that nobody in this room, none of these people had anything to do with,
That's the one.
to accept this,
We consulted with our general counsel and
Well, that's
position
what he's
that the
asking.
rules don't allow for this kind of that. So while it might be something that we want to look at, rule change to allow for certain waivers like that, currently the rules do not allow for waivers that would accommodate what we were asking.
That was gonna be my second question, so I'll address that first. There were a handful of situations that were brought up this morning, the CPR issue, the 3-year issue, a whole number of things that I think y'all are allowed to do a waiver, it's pretty easily. If you're not able to do a waiver, they're gonna leave quite a few people in a bind, making it on the career side. So those numbers may go down significantly. But if we understand that we're operating under what we're operating under, we're kind of under really a race right now to have this fixed before the end of the year. Now, I would say you probably need to be scheduling public hearing by June, or even maybe by the Gatlinburg meeting, if you're going to have any shot of. And I think Commissioner Bell's going to have a lot more success at getting rules move along based on his history than we've had. Whatever's happened the last 2 years is not normal with rules, but still, if we want to have a shot of not screwing everybody over for 2 years, and I know everybody's busy, it's going to be hard to do it, but I think we're going to have it done in the next 2 months, or 3 months. We're going to have a shot at it. And we may not be able to do everything we want to do, but I think we've got to do something pretty quick.
Does it go to GovOps after the 90 days or during the 90 days?
So these rules would go in front of us pretty sure sometime the next day.
Hopefully, but if, with them in session, it might be delayed a little bit, but they'll still be.
And I think we have a strong enough case to make, to be up to the commissioner, that we could do emergency rules on the EIP changes. That would get them into effect before the next.
I didn't quite follow, but I thought this body, one of its existences is to waive any rule.
When I specifically asked the question about whether we could have a waiver to accommodate the current DEIP situation, DPR deadline. They said we have to follow the rules as they're currently written. To accommodate a waiver of that.
Why not?
That was just the response that I got.
It sounds like an insurance company would ask for MRI. It's always no. First,
I don't want to tell you something that's not true. And I can ask more questions. Tomorrow.
Yeah, please, because we have stakeholders asking why.
I'll ask one.
yeah, because if the intent, if Governor McNally, if you ask him, it's going to be yes. I've got the letter. that told
We all
us
have
were
the
off.
letter.
But we-
It's board,
we
if we didn't
waived
make it
deadlines
easier.
And the same rules for
Yeah, we
missing a submission.
we grant
line.
waivers. Yeah, we grant waivers for
Mission,
the submission deadlines or even, yeah, for both either payment or for
Falls
the
under
program.
the same rule.
follows that rule.
I've tried to get you guys more in-depth. I just don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
No, I understand, but I think that's a waiverable. Yeah, we're going to give October 1st deadlines and January 1st. March 1st deadline. Yeah, they can start on January 1st. Deadline. We waive that every year. Or issue an extension. Well, and these are extenuating circumstances. We never thought the rule would be changed by now.
This, you guys never identified the 3-year of the DEIP as something to change. That's not changing the upcoming red line. When we talked about this in Kingsport, everyone said, no, we like the way it is, but the DEIP subcommittee talked about it, that's now.
Yeah, that's not
We were
important.
told, yeah, we were told not to open that.
This has come up since we saw the December 31st deadline and everyone started realizing they're not going to be eligible. This was never identified.
But they were eligible for 20.
I think,
24.
I think the big thing is that we
Those
were
things in the
anticipating,
31st.
the rule being in place before, fourth quarter of last year. And then the intent was to do an emergency rule to cover what this was. That's,
I spoke on the 3-year rule at the public hearing. And Gary said, we're aware that's a priority to fix, but we can't fix it till we get to the rules.
2 years. At least.
So the formal rulemaking came in 2024.
Right.
And now we're at February 3rd of this year. So it's been 1 calendar year.
To that. To that.
What happened prior, I wasn't here prior to that, but what happened prior to that, it was not the clock that we measure by, is the rulemaking hearing. But we can certainly identify what the subcommittee wants to change. We can certainly get that in front of the other subcommittee and have red lines drafted as fast as you want. But remember, just like we just passed red line, if we don't open a chapter in that initial rulemaking, then we cannot then go back. So that's why we want to do another just very careful survey of all of the rules, so we don't end up in this situation this time. We didn't know.
unfortunately, I think we're at a point where we will have to address this immediately. And all the other rules that you need to be looked at will have to wait. But this has to be the priority. This has to be the priority.
Like 69 days. It's gonna be tough.
I'm trying to sound this all. I'll discuss what.
Right, so it still reverts back.
No.
The emergency rules expired.
Yeah, but
And
then
then that.
the other
but
one
it was
kicked in.
even late too.
That one kicked in, I want to say November.
The permanent ERP rules,
Yep.
the ERP rules.
And to echo what he said earlier, I think we did all receive an email saying, don't worry about CPR. We're not gonna.
I'm sure you did, it's republished.
Because the intent of the commission, the intent of this board was, let's do away with it because of how hard it is for volunteer departments to get that CPR.
Saying the 10-year rule within the deadline, emergency rules for archery. They expired. Everyone was called for 10 years.
And it will be. Whenever it's hurdle.
Exactly.
So, yeah, even though you don't meet it today, you may have hit 3 years. Whenever this goes final, you gain 7 years.
How do we legally create emergency rules, make it fixed? I don't want to expire without the permanent fix being in place. And then leave the entire state in the limbo.
So the way that our, particularly those emergency rules, we first have to make sure it was all under the emergency rule, statute. Be eligible. So we would run the red lines for the formal rulemaking hearing at the same time as we, so that we would have a better chance of actual rule change being verified. Obviously, can't make guarantees that typical. So that we have a timeline that we're looking at. And again, you've seen what the timelines go. But that emergency rule from the time it passed would be a percent. And then hopefully that.
I think the process was set up to not make agencies rely on emergency rules to get off your duff and get permanent rules done. We did. I mean, it's been a year since we submitted it. Once it got out of our hands, I'd say we have no control, but we've not had a lot of, we've had turmoil at the top of this office. Doesn't help our case. Turn over above this, person we report to, the commissioner, assistant commissioner conversation, and even that's turnover. Not an excuse, it just happened. I think the new assistant commissioner is sympathetic, but it's still a process because of previous abuse. And there's what, 200 boards and commissions? There's a lot in taking conversation.
Nobody knows the rules process better than him.
Yeah,
I hope that's going to help.
yeah, he should know. He was the chair of Gov Ops.
So get ahead of this process.
Yeah. That's right. We went down to major 30-minute rabbit hole.
Well, we did, but that was just the EIT.
The marching orders are to make it more accessible, user-friendly. Whether, again, back to what I said again, whether it's CADIS, whether it's submission, whatever it is.
But see, that's the other thing. too.
Program,
If a cadence is not used appropriately, meaning if you as training officers here today have people inside your cadence that is not part of your department anymore, why are they still there? We've seen so many over the past few years where they've been out of the fire service for 3, 5, 10 years, but they're still in people's cadetses 3 years after they left that department. That's what the commission's relying on for these verifications for time.
I had something on that, and I contacted Director Zimmerman about that, is I have a gentleman in my case, he was at a previous fire department, and he was out of the service for more than 10 years. And when he was re-put back into the cadence, all of his stuff come back. Every bit of it. Now, take into consideration, He's been out of the fire service more than 10 years. Instructor 1, fire officer 1. You name it, he had it. And it all come back active. He is still sitting in my case account because I'm waiting on an answer. But why did all that reactivate?
And that goes back to how fun the CADIS is. Not only on our side is the CADIS fun, right? And I'm being sarcastic on it. It's 1,000 times worse on their side. On the back of the house of the CADIS, it's a nightmare. We hate it. Trust me, they hate it worse.
And to this point, we have no way of verifying or knowing this unless the training officers update it and make those changes. You know, we're relying upon y'all guys to keep accurate records. Otherwise, we have no knowledge that that person's not active within a fire service or at a department any longer.
He wasn't active.
But nothing ever got changed on it because we don't, like I said, we don't know that unless somebody calls us and tells us.
Well, he's saying it was inactivated. Again, if Nick didn't deactivate me when I left Brentwood, from the bus, then I just keep running. He's saying this individual was deactivated by whatever department he left.
Other than the case, even if I show the person retired, resigned, retired, whatever, that will cause them to expire. If he goes to work still, if he pulls him up, all his records come back. So me as a training officer, verify the chiefs, make sure there's no breaks in service, and I have to contact the my knowledge, what I've been told.
It's a machine.
Right.
So I have something to add to that. So talk to IFSAC and Pro Board. IFSAC and Pro Board certs never expire. They never go away. So if a person was to take something in another state and be inactive for 10, 20 years and decide to come here and get reciprocity, you're going to award it.
I do my job. Right. But I have to ask for the process. But you take it out of my hands.
It's
I
why
have to attest that I approve of this person does not have a blanket service.
They can do it individually, though.
But if he does his own,
Yeah. I have no
I have no way of knowing this.
And I think that's what she's saying. If he does it individually by himself, they have no way of.
We've had this conversation 10 years.
Evidence that they have not penetrated.
One of the things gonna have to go back to that regulation.
They are supposed to submit letters
They are.
that shows that they have not had a break in service over the amount of
But
years.
so the chief is, we're all desperate as chiefs to fill vacancies. So
No, but in order for them to issue the reciprocity, they're supposed to submit that letter to their office.
I know, but if I'm the chief and I'm desperate, he's been out 3 years and 2 months. He's only been out 2 years and 8 months. You know what I'm saying? There's no, you're relying on the AHJ to sign the letter. But there are departments, let's be honest, and again, training officers are busy. So-and-so leaves to go to work for Servpro for 6 months. They never took them out. Let's be honest, they never deactivated. Some do it automatic. Some, when training officers, as they turn over, the new guy doesn't know he's supposed, until he has the orientation class, he's supposed to deactivate.
For the record, other, if they retire, I can't deactivate it after something pays money.
Right.
Then I've got to go back retroactively.
Right, it's just one exception to being eligible for a DIP.
Make a motion for a break.
Yes, second.
10-minute break.
So another communication issue we talked about here on clarity. So VEIP started, this would only be the 3rd year we've had, this would be the 3rd $600 year. So if Knowles was started in the 1st year, just because Knowles' clock's running doesn't mean an individual's clock's running. If they join your department June of 2024, their 3 year starts there, not when the department. I think there's some confusion out there too about that still. The clock is the individuals, because you're going to have people coming in from now into infinity. Wouldn't be fair that you joined Brentwood, you had to be a firefighter too, back in 1986, or you wouldn't get salaries. You have 3 years, career in 5 years to do everything today as a volunteer. Under, first there were the emergency VEIP rules, and then they were adopted. Now they're expiring, but in my head, why would, these didn't expire until December 31st of 2024. To get salary supplement for 2024, you had to be on the roster and met the requirements that day. Now, January 1, you may have rolled off. Nobody should have rolled off for 2024. The rule didn't expire until December 31, 2024, to be eligible for last year. Now, that's only the person that's gotten the first 2 years. So it shouldn't be a large audit. It still is going to have a detrimental impact. I just want to make sure that we're all talking oranges to oranges and apples to apples. Because an individual that's been with the department 3 years would have had to have met those. If he got the first 2 years, the office would probably catch, okay, third year, does he have 1664 live birth? Now, again, it's up to the chief to verify. Because there is no city manager verification on the volunteer.
What we've been told in the past was, and I don't think this is what the old rule said either, but the way it had been interpreted was, let's say they've been with you 10 years, but you just really got them in the training. They couldn't get it more than the third year, 3 years without meeting that benchmark. So my guy, I finally got him into a hazmat class. He finally got excited about getting $600, but he's already passed his 3 years. That kind of, we're trying to use this as a characteristic approach. And I've always been told as long as they hadn't gotten it 3 years in the past, they were good to go. That's not really.
Well, to my interpretation, they haven't participated until now. I'm one vote.
Yeah.
I think the intent is to try to be, because even for a career guy, I might have stayed firefighter 2 for 10 years before he decided to go get an instructor and officer. Of course, that wasn't a requirement for EIP. You got to keep the two separate. But the goal of this subcommittee is to make the EIP more accessible. You've got to be careful. You know, y'all may have heard me argue. You got to be careful how accessible, because we've got hard and fast rules on a career person, but they're getting paid to do this. So it should. That's comparing apples to oranges. You know, what we do with the volunteer, they get $200 less, and they're never going to get. If we came up with a volunteer certification, they're never going to be able to progress with that. That's all they're going to get, and they'll get their $600 in the definitive.
If we submit somebody this year that's been under training, made progress, been on the department more than 3 years, never participated before, but hasn't hit the 64-hour mark, are they eligible?
If this is the first year that they're submitting, then yes, because their clock as far as participating in EIP started
When they start participating.
I agree with that, and that's how I've been told to apply in the past, but that was not my reading.
That's my, as the chair, I feel that way, because it wouldn't be fair to John Smith, who joined the department in February and got in. There's no more than, if they've already gotten 2 years in a row, you know, if they've gotten 1,200, then their clock's been running. But if they've gotten no money, to me, their clock has not been running.
I like that interpretation.
It's going to be whoever in the office, whoever's checking for Tina. I don't know who's checking. It's going to be Tina's interpretation, probably coming to her and asking. But to me, if they've never collected, their clock hasn't been running. Now, what do you do with the person that collected the first year, took 2 years off?
I was told they weren't eligible anymore ever again.
That might be the interpretation, but you're talking about somebody that's never collected. Theirs are cleaner. That somebody collected a year, took a year off.
Because that was the intent when we created that, was it would start, the clock would start from the year that they started collecting EIP fees. That was year 1. They could have been on that department for 20 years. Right. But that clock didn't start until that first year they participated in EIP.
Is that whole true that changed departments in the process?
From the first year that they collected.
Eligible for it. May I?
Yes, sir.
So, number 6 and 7. Number 6, data individual came before the department fire or volunteer as a firefighter effectively. Participation in educational and incentive programs, they use to calculate deadlines for certification. All that part says certification. All career fire departments, participating in educational incentive programs shall have their qualified personnel trained firefighter 2 certification no later than 36 months from the date the department enters the educational incentive program. So career says the date they start entering the program. Volunteers enter the program in July. For careers, it says July was the start of that 36 months. The volunteers, we're holding them accountable. It's less than 3 years. Let's I'm interpreting.
Okay, my question, because we're not there yet, probably. Because this will be at the office. Who's been denied so far? Well, nobody at this point. We're just getting the record.
No, there's people not getting turned in because.
Yeah, I didn't turn them in.
Janice already laid people off her roster.
And I'm gonna say this, part of it, the problem is I don't understand, because when I ask people questions like we talked about, nobody knows. Just like live fire, nobody can tell me. Somebody said 10, somebody said 3, somebody said 5. Heck, I don't know. What do I tell my people? You know, that's where the problem is too, is I think maybe I get what the rules say, but coming into this new, I was always with the page, so it didn't really matter. I've learned a whole lot coming into combination. I've learned a different respect for the volunteer side. They don't have a voice, personally. Somebody's got to step up. You know, not Stephanie always has. I will say she's always done that. But and so I think some of that falls on me. I came under someone else who had already started a program here, and he put all the people in 2021, I guess, when this law came. I'm not a rural person. I try to do what I do, but so I had guys that started the HMA, HMO, and then freaked out. They don't have a live fire. I assumed live fire was okay for 10 years. Well, no, it says 3 on the papers, and somebody says 5. So he's not eligible this year because I'm doing live fire in April. And then I was told, since he collected money previously, even if I pick him up, he'll never get the same money again.
So the live burn for VIP is that way. So if he's taking it once, he'd be eligible.
Is that the current?
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
it's
current.
current.
So I don't know.
That came out of the emergency.
That's in the current.
Yeah, as of November 2022.
For 10 years.
Where?
Where? Because I've got several.
Not online.
Not online. It's not. I've got people that are out of date that I can't get renewed.
That's the problem. No one knows.
It is going to be online. Chapter 3, or I'm sorry, page 3 is going to be the volunteer firefighter must complete 1664, course in the commission approved live burn by the end of the calendar year in which the volunteer reaches the firefighter's 36th month of service with the recognized department or within This requirement will be satisfied with approved live burn within 10 years of December 31st, 2021.
With no break in service exceeding 16 months, that may be.
Where the 5 years.
The live burn paperwork I turned in.
Well, I don't know if that form's been updated.
For the live burn class, if you don't pass through 551, the live burn class for the live burn class is good for me. But if you're talking about for VIP, to see whether someone's taken the live burn, we are looking back for 10 years.
Chapter 7, for educational incentive.
That's what he's at.
Yeah.
Chapter 4 says 3 years. The office is holding us accountable to the smaller, more stringent rules.
Not for VIP.
Okay, let me go back to that.
Not that I'm aware of, I'm just seeing it.
Certification, there's been VIP.
Yeah, if they're testing up for
If we got it.
firefighter 1, firefighter 2, then it's 3 years. But if it's for EIP education incentive, it's 10 years.
The good news though is it's in these new rules, it's all 10 years across the board.
That might go into effect in 2022.
And then
Yeah,
I show
definitely.
one And then the commission 101 classes for a very long time. Everyone was taught 2 years. Previous directors told everyone 2 years. I do this for a living. So this year, oh, 10 years based on what I've read right there.
So it will be. But it's still 10 years for the vet.
For EIP.
Volunteer educational incentive program is 10 years today. Not tomorrow, not 6 months, that's today. Looking backwards. So from 2011, well, 2021 backwards.
From 2021, moving forward, it's 10 years.
It's a certificate.
We took it back to 2021.
You were asking about testing though, you weren't asking about EIP.
You started today.
So I have one, I will say his name. He took his live burn in 2021. On the cable.
What's the date?
It shows inactive.
What's the date in 2021?
It is 1/23 or 21. And it's showing him inactive.
So we have been instructed to not go back and change expiration dates, but just to acknowledge that it's, if it is the EIP purposes.
I still can't do it either way.
Commission approved live burn within 10 years of December 31st, 2020.
We were talking about testing. We weren't talking about.
Which
It's gonna happen.
Which, yeah, which would mean December 31st of 2011. If a live burn has taken place from December 31st of 2011 forward, it's got a 10-year on it.
And their forms are signed and dated.
It's got a 10-year on it.
And your current form says expired in 3 years from this date.
I don't think the form is.
We've been asking. to have that
Yeah,
changed.
That's the new rules on it. That's for certain.
That's a
This just says live fire verification.
form. Right, with 5 for firefighter 1, 3 for firefighter 2, or whatever it is. Because that's the one I'm getting.
Form we turn in to prove they have it for anything.
Right.
The only form you get,
The only.
Yeah. That's the only live fire verification form we have. Because the other form that everyone gets confused with is the firefighter 1 local verification. Yeah, local verification.
Just now come around to where we have to turn it in.
It's been there, but
Oh, it's been there.
It's been there, but we've never had to turn it in. Never. My 10 years as a training officer. It's never
So-
been requested until 2 weeks ago.
so let me tell you all this, right? Because Director Zimmerman and I had numerous conversations about this. We were very customer service oriented. And so a lot of the things that was taking place in the commission office first was focused on customer service, not rule. So these problems that are coming up right now that we're being made aware of, that we can try to go ahead and fix, which is a little too late, but we're now addressing that, yes, this is a problem. Yes, we need to fix this. Before they weren't problems because the customer service was taking care of them. But how long can we work as customer service and not follow the rules? I mean, rules are put into place for a reason, right? We all have rules. Hold on. Rules are put in place for a reason. And it's for us to have a guideline to be able to conduct our operations, right? So what Director Zimmerman's been doing is, as these pieces have been popping up to the surface, she's been documenting. And these are the things that we're going to be addressing immediately as soon as the door opens for us to be able to. But like I said, we never knew they were problems before because they weren't coming in from the commission. So,
So I personally have sat in front of the commission and argued 90% of these issues. I have had certain commissioners laugh at us because we ask for waivers because we don't follow the rules. Our goal, West Tennessee Training Officers Association, to remember though, started in 2015 for the same exact reason. Everything started changing so fast, we couldn't keep up with it. And I started going to meetings with a new voice, taking the hits. And over, we've been told, just do it this way. And again, I personally have sat here at least 2-3 times before. So when certain people here are gone, we're gonna be stuck with this. It's not gonna work. And I know we can't help that. It's not your fault. Everybody is new in place. Okay. But it comes down to, my first conversation with the director was, I started another recruit class this year. This goes back to in-service problems. You didn't hear about everybody back here when you asked questions about October 4th deadline. Education director was, all we do now is teach recruit class. There's not 100 people lined up for a job anymore. We're on 4 times, 4 months at a time teaching all year long. I can't teach my recruit class or work on other projects while my instructor teaches it. Because between hazmat awareness, hazmat ops, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, practical written exams, they got canceled 6 times. Because the rules state, back in the old paperwork days, I have to have all my paperwork submitted 15 days prior. The commission made an allowance except for TPAC. When that was done, I argued the same point. We do, God knows how much more training than TPAC does across the state. TPAC doesn't have to meet these deadlines. And I've talked with Jason Smart. I'm not throwing him over the bus. He wants to have this conversation. And he agrees. Anyway. But I cannot teach hazmat ops this week and test the person next week and have everything done. And I'm being told, you got to give me a completed roster or we're going to cancel everything today. I'm not lost on the roster. So finally, what did I have to do? Send a completed roster 2 days before my class was done. I sent an email about the firefighter 2 practice because nothing in writing says I've done anything with firefighter 2. Everything else is uploaded. Didn't get a reply. I went ahead and emailed certificates that were predated a week and a half later. They still had some classes and stuff to do after firefighter 1 testing. Emailed them to the commission and put them in a case. They were all denying the case without putting their approval case. You can't post it, certification. But yet, how do I prove I'm doing the training? We don't know which rules to follow and how to. We can't function this way for another year.
Well, and just to add on to that, in the red line, for that, any individual found cheating on a commission exam or found to have submitted falsified documentation to register for a commission examination after a hearing. So by predating, the person hasn't completed the class yet. So now is that a falsification of documentation? So we see there's things that we have to address.
And the email I sent her stated, unless something catastrophic happens, these people graduate on this date. Do something change. But rather than a reply, duplication of my effort to cover both bases, I just rejected. Because I sent an in-writing request. I don't need to handle this one. So then my practicals got rejected. That we're going to be on Thursday. That's on Friday, firefighter 1. So all the emails got that fixed. They got rejected again. So all the emails got that fixed. Then when they show up, when they reapply them, they always put them into the firefighter 1 practice, not 2. Luckily, the person that showed up made the phone call, was able to do it. I got a million phone calls, they have to see what's wrong. It's just another area when they reapplied it, it's the right one. But again, there is no way for us to teach the rules that are in place.
I would like to add on the 10-year rule. It has been changed for several people. It's been updated in the case. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. But if you're gonna do one, do it for everybody. Not saying that y'all did it. That's neither here nor there. But I have several people in my case account that I have emailed a person, said, hey, he's going out, I need it fixed. It's supposed to be updated 10 years, and it was updated for 10 years.
Person's name on it.
I understand. Again, I have people in my case that are updated with 10 years. Because realistically, what I just said, so everyone else can hear out of transparency, said maybe we should look at just doing away with the time frame on live work. Because how often does that standard really change? When Director Elliott talked to us, when we asked him the question, he said it would at least 10 years since it's been changed. So, yeah, so.
Not a single word has changed.
So I think maybe moving forward, one of the things we should look at is taking out that full time frame with live burn at the beginning. Because it's not like we're recertifying live burn, are we? How many recertifications of live burn have any of us gone
After this whole review, I'll schedule my whole department for April. Because I don't know what they're gonna have, you know? And that's where it gets frustrating as trainers too, because like you said, these guys come to us for, I don't know what to tell them. I had to call you, Corey, and then we had to have a debate on what's the right route, you know? And that just makes it hard, I know, and then I think we attack you guys, we attack Heather, bless her heart, she's coming here and took a mess, and, you know, we're trying to all figure it out together, and I think that's what I told them on the communication on board on all this, we gotta get it figured out, and stick to our guns, and stick, like you said earlier, be consistent. We gotta stick with it. It's frustrating on our side to not know what to tell our people.
Last time the form took an update was 10 years ago. This is the 6/2014. Because it's not fairly easy, but there are a lot more 1403 instructors out there. And the firefighter, this is where I'm trying to get clarity, and I need the Jeff and then here, but the 5 burns are pretty easy to pull off in almost any department. Passenger, Class A, interior structure, portable, and ground cover. You can get some straw on the hill, and you can have a firefighter 1 burn without a lot of complexity. And yeah, as long as you're following, to me, as long as you follow rules, as long as you get that live burn number. Yes. So, but what I'm hearing from people in the field is there's, because it wasn't a TFAC, it doesn't count. Even if you had a live burn number. I've got a volunteer that was told that he can't progress. And we got the number because I have 17 people on the department, 7 of them are 1403 instructors. We've done 9 acquired structures in the last 2 years. So it's pretty easy to do firefighter 1. Now that doesn't mean they got firefighter 2, but harder to get them into TFAC for that 2 burn. Unless you've got a flammable cylinder fire control, of course you're going to light the old propane tank off and take that risk. I'm not saying I hadn't done it to get some. I do them all the time. I got a gas line, running that natural gas line. So if you get the number, it should, now the debate will be down here at the 3-year expiration on the current form. You shouldn't get resistance. I hope you're not getting resistance inside the fire commission once you have an issued number, if that makes any sense. Now, we're going to, obviously, it's going to be a debate on when that date started. It should be a debate the day you burn the house. We just did one last week on January 28th. Somebody would have had their all 4 or 5 of their firefighter 1 burns done. Now they might have different dates. We might burn the car on a different day than the house, but the ground cover is usually the same day as the car because they're on the same deal. But for progression and certification, it's different than, of course, once the new rules, 10 years is 10 years. We're just not there. But it's, where's it 5 years at? What was the 5-year part?
The 5 years was separation.
Separation.
Because it used to be 36 months. for
36 months, I mean,
separation.
60 months like the PD. Be more consistent. We took out years, 60 months. But is that in the new rule? Not in the current rule.
In red line? For,
Chapter 3 in the certification test. But for clarity, today, we have 10 years in the EIP. Today. It will cross for all of us, career or volunteer, after these rules take effect. But if a commission employee tells you different, we really directly say, no, we won't help you. Because if you call me, I'm gonna call her. Because it had to come out of the office. Because they're the end say on the test application. I don't know who that is. It's probably 10. But nobody should have been, but you're saying you didn't even submit them because you were afraid you were gonna be rejected.
I'm good with it. He's pissed off at me. It's fine. We're all good. I mean, we can't get volunteers to stay now, so we just running them out the door. I mean, it's fine.
Man, that's across the state.
That's across the
I'm sorry to tell
state.
you. I mean, and ladies and gentlemen, I want to say this, just, I appreciate you bringing your questions to us and your concerns. And I also appreciate you being
Yeah, too.
understanding. Okay, because we're sorry that you were told wrong. We're sorry that somebody in the past told you that you don't have to have CPR.
Well, we all said,
I mean,
me too, bro.
no, but we were talking and there was somebody that was going around just telling everybody they did not have to have it. I'm like, well, just bear with us. It's
It's
gonna
like
work
trying
itself
to
out.
make
I
it better.
promise you.
We did away with hazmat because not every department carries hazmat. How will we make it everybody do hazmat? If you never ran a hazmat call, didn't make any sense. You know, if you didn't own a pig or a plug or a non-sparking wrench, why would you train to it?
That goes, what you just said goes back to what we're talking about with DEIP and having that firefighter one requirement attached to it. That was it in a nutshell.
What we were talking about earlier. You can't get your vehicle volunteers because of that.
Right.
And they're not even doing that stuff.
That 5 years.
You're defeating the whole purpose of the process.
And it's very, I wish it was simpler. There's TCA, City Code annotated, and then there's our rules. And unfortunately, occasionally, maybe there was our practice. Yeah. Or just, the same thing happens in our departments. We do something, and somebody will go, that's not what the OG says. Well, we either need to change the OG or change the practice. Yeah, it happens in all of it. It happens in McDonald's. I'm not saying it's right. I won't say it hasn't happened. And I know there's been some directors that approve and change stuff on the fly, which makes it hard for us to keep up with.
I can personally say that this, I personally experienced that.
Which is good,
She's gonna stick to the black and white. ladies and gentlemen,
which is good. All right. back to the volunteer city.
I think we covered that enough.
I think we
Let's move
covered-
on.
And we'll have another meeting, and it's to try to make it more accessible. That may look very different from today as we move forward, because the numbers are only going to keep going down.
Let's touch on that. Just one more thing with this. We did get clarification from legal. Unfortunately, we cannot do a blanket waiver for that part of the rule because in our rule, it only allows us to grant waivers for 3 different types of waivers. One is on the submission deadline for your course approval. Number 2 is a waiver on the deadline for requesting the money. And then the third one was waiting periods between certifications. Those are the only 3 waivers that's in our rule book that we could actually grant. So unfortunately,
Now, could we make another emergency rule?
And that's what we're looking into now is what the Tennessee law will allow us to make an emergency rule. It has to be an immediate threat to health, safety, or welfare. So.
I want my welfare.
Some of the eligibility there, I just don't want to get anybody's hopes up that if we try to do this, if the legislature stops us or the AG stops us, I don't want to make any false promises that we're looking into it.
Maribeth, thank you for getting that information back to us. So now you have to come back tomorrow to get the final answer. All right.
All right. Tennessee Firemen's Association, West Tennessee Officers. Is there a request in
We talked about most all
there? You just want to be on the agenda.
Make sure we're on the agenda.
Sign in.
So,
Sign in tomorrow.
after the day, I'll sign it tomorrow.
We've got the chair.
Really, for us, goes back to, I understand there's nothing we can do about it, but I know it's rules. But when the director of this organization, after meetings and conversations, then goes out statewide, our chiefs and training officers, this is the way this is going to be done. And then suddenly, end of the year, everything changes. You're affecting money in people's pockets. I know y'all can't do much about some of the past, but it affects everybody in the state. Well, the question is, how many people choose which rules? I got over it, possibly something more. Because there's things in these rules that for convenience are not done on the commission side. So we're being held accountable for every one of these things in there that we haven't done that way. The crew classes have been done the same 24 years in the state. We've asked for those changes. CPAC got it. We did. Now suddenly it affects us because we're being held to what is in the laws. We understand that.
It's in the new rule.
Does anybody in this room know what the new rules have done?
Chapter 4, but because it specifically talks about that, and I'll read you the red line for it. Because before it said TPACA only, right? So in the red line, applications for all off-campus certification courses shall be received by the commission. I'm just reading what it says.
I know, and that's, I was down to the 70, it's bad.
But basically, it's any approved, fire commission approved course that is approved by this board right here. So,
What I'm slightly nervous about is that, you know, from the rules that we approved in the public hearing, AG's office and 2 or 3 other offices have
we haven't seen it yet either.
The only red line I've ever seen is the one that former chief actually still got. I sent y'all that had pages and pages and pages of areas. But if you don't get to go to these meetings, you're in the dark. It's the only information we get. It's been that way for years. The one-on-one classes weren't talking what we're doing today. They were talking what the tip was throughout this entire process that aren't the rules today. So bigger chiefs, training officers, and active did that. The Decatur counties and don't. I still have counties from whole state call me, and those departments don't have a clue what lawsuits it is. I sponsored about 8 departments last year. Worked with the commission during the program this year, and we got those sponsored the Department Association last year. Which, by the way, is a handshake agreement that was made between Farley and the Academy and the Fire Association. That we were told we would get rules or something in writing to protect us. I've sent those emails out. The Firemen's Association, not a department. And I can't get an answer on people this year going to get their money because now we're following the written rules. That's not in there for them. But yet I'm still getting calls and you can't tell them.
I find it's sad, not that there's not room for improvement, but I know the field reps are out selling. I know they are. At least I speak for
They
me.
are, but if they don't know what to call and ask, they don't have the information because they don't get out to meetings.
They can't go
Don't
here.
sign up for certain things. And quite honestly, for us, last year, I probably had the chief let me get used to see at least once. I miss 50% of the business meetings every year. It's doing the meetings.
Yeah, you have Gatlinburg, probably Kingsport.
Yeah, probably 50% of volunteer departments don't participate in anything. So they don't have any county fire association meetings. They're not part of any of the other associations.
Well, same with the chief's meetings this week. I talked to them
They
about
work. Stuff that I assume everybody knows about. This is something never heard of. It kind of blows my mind.
but if those of us who do it full time don't know what we are, how are the those chiefs gonna know what to do?
One thing that you mentioned was, participation. I know when I came on commission, I brought up exactly what we're doing today is teams. People can attend virtual. I'm not saying the commission board, but people from east, west, middle. And I am happy and thank you. Thank you to the commission staff for doing this. It allows at least some of us that can make these meetings. And thank you. I hope this is something we can keep up.
There are no easy answers. My volunteers train every other Saturday only. That's their training. Tuesday nights weren't working, Thursday night, Saturday's working a little bit. Because everybody's busy. So it's hard to, I can only imagine how hard it is to get the word to Haney, William, Ventress County Volunteer Fire Department about solar something. Or even Henrietta. Well, Chittenden County's probably bad.
Some of you may not realize how some of these county departments work. Some of the counties around here, you don't have a county volunteer fire department. Your county has about 10 different departments in it, each little big community that are individually ran. There's no one chief I can call and talk to.
That's the way our county is. There's 10 different departments.
There were 4 chiefs in here this morning from Hardin County alone. The other thing I would like to see look at policies that are online. 2015, we got rid of the rule that says I have to have a resume for whoever going to teach hazmat field service. It's still in policy. Take out a rule. But policy would be the same as well. That's the only information we have. So we know about.
Let's see on the website.
There's a new draft.
Rebecca, you gotta speak up.
Sorry. There's a new draft of those online policies that's being edited internally right now. We're gonna see that soon. I just got it back. So as soon as I have something for y'all.
And the purest intent is that if you have a rule rewrite, there are no policies. It's supposed to be taken care of by rule. Now, that's the purest intent, doesn't happen, I'm just saying. Because there's some rules, there's some policies in here from a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah, I read through those last week.
Yeah, these, I mean, you got Clarence and Connor,
Almost think people.
and the intent of a rulemaking hearing is to do away with policy. Here's one from 91, that one's a little stale.
All that said, I just want to close with, I do appreciate all y'all. Y'all didn't create this problem. We know
Some of us
we're all built. One thing I have made vocal to Bill and director last week, when we met here, training officer meeting, kind of today, is if I mess up as training officer, know what little prereqs, you cancel everybody. You're not punishing me, that's punishing the user. And there should be some type of customer service built in that I can be notified that, hey, Dave, you didn't do your job and we fixed this instead of 15 days out, everything. And if I keep messing up, pull me in here and watch me somewhere and watch me somewhere, hold me accountable. But if I mess up, it's more trying to get hired, keep the jobs, or not me. A lot of it isn't that I'm messing up, it's that now suddenly we're being held to rules that I don't know how to fix until it's fixed. Very next crew class talk, we were in this state, they're going to teach hazmat in a week, they're going to do all their live fire, practical, written tests in 2-3 days. We can't meet that criteria.
I have a recommendation. I don't know who can modify a CADIS, but in a CADIS, when we're entering a prerequisites, there's no checkboxes to confirm that those prerequisites that I entered, that I say that the individual has, are in there. So my recommendation would be a program change where when I say I want to sign someone up for a firefighter 2, I click a box, all the prereqs pop up for that firefighter 2. If those prereqs are already in the CADIS system, it's got a check mark beside it. If it's not in the system, it doesn't have a check mark beside it. And then I know that there are prerequisites that are not entered into the system that I need to enter. I assure you that as a training officer, I want to make sure that all of my people have all their stuff in so I don't get the bad emails, right? And I get rejected. But if it's already in there, if it automatically pops up, it automatically populates, firefighter 2 is required, the prereqs, 3 of the boxes are checked, 1 of them's not. Oops, I forgot to enter that one. Then that alerts me that I need to upload that prerequisite, and it saves the office a ton of time because I'm handling it as the training officer before you ever have to approve it.
We talked about this the other day. One of the biggest problems is you have an option that says, I want to finish later. So you can bypass that. Well, because you can go ahead and check that, as a training officer, you may have 30 other things that you're going to do and you forget to go back and do that. So I think, if anything, that option, I want to finish later, needs to be eliminated.
Yeah, I will say, I could ask Arcadis if that's something that's even, we could even put in there. I do know that Arcadis doesn't really do conditional, and that's something I've had to try to overcome with some of these web forms that we're going to be creating. So I don't know if I can put it in there for it to automatically populate that that's in there for that student, but I can ask and see if that's even something that they offer. But I mean, other than that,
And I'm aware know what prerequisites they need, but even in a case, when I look at an individual's profile, there are many of the certifications that they've received that I can't see as a training officer. I guess it's in the background in the documents area that, I have to email back and forth to Tina or Robin to see if it's in there. And sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. But if I'm trying to enter those prereqs and I'm not certain if they're in there, I always go back and ask. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it was here and not there. It was labeled as something else because it's educational incentive thing or whatever it was. So it's a challenge that can be overcome with the checkboxes, I believe. It's a system change to make it more efficient.
As far as like officer level training and stuff of that nature, like the practicals and stuff, yes, those are down in documents where you cannot see them. But if anything was entered in reported training that y'all put in, it should be in the training hours on it. So you should be able to see that. Now, if somebody labeled it as education incentive pay, I don't have any way other than just, there's really no way to other than just to go in and click on each one and look to see. And we've had that happen, and that's one thing that is frustrating to Robin when she's trying to find practice or find prerequisites. If somebody put that in there because it was part of an education incentive, but it was also part of a practical component. And so she's like, some guys, I'm telling you, some people have got like 20 or 30 of them.
Sure.
And so she's like, I don't know which one it is. So.
And practicals, is there a way that we can make practicals show up as complete
as far as like
in the
what kind
system
of
for the individual? So if someone takes a instructor to practical, for me to know that the instructor to practical is in the system and has completed and graded and they can pass. I understand that it's not required as a prerequisite for them to take the instructor to test because it doesn't matter which comes first. But is there a way to see that that's in there?
I'm sure there's probably a way for us to put it in there.
The last time I emailed a practical to the office, like I've done our careers since we started doing this, is still issue the practical out in for like instructor two, officer two. When they're done, they say no to you. So in West Tennessee, we've been told, my God, that's not where it goes. You put it in the cadence, that's how we do it. So suddenly, I'm uploading officer two practical in the cadence. And it popped up and got graded the other day. And I'm gonna have to know in a couple of weeks, hey, that's just like a month ago. And it says this. It goes back to there's so many different ways we can hold things.
I don't know how that happened.
Make sure I heard you right. So you're saying you're uploading a completed practical to a case. It would never be graded.
I had my new public education office, and or like I say, just do one practical. The commission email that we were told that we were going to send everything to West Tennessee. And he got a very, very nice reworded email about, my God, that's not how that works.
It's being emailed to the FFC email.
And when he told me about it, I said, well, let's see. So I uploaded it into a cadence, and I'll give you this. Within a day, it got graded.
She receives those, and historically, she's been doing it correct. Now she says all of it. Like today, I've got 3 practicals to correct all across the state. It's sent to me.
I uploaded an officer two practical last week.
Can the training officer
Says it's approved.
Can the training officer see the comment section? No, because we've been instructed to, grade it, drop it into the document section, and then also copy and paste that into the comment section, but you guys can't see that.
They can't see any of that. The documents.
I don't see anything. But when an individual, one of our personnel is approved for a practical, I receive no notification of it. The individual gets an email, and I don't get an email, even if I put all my information in cadence, as the training officer, since it doesn't go in a cadence, I guess, to the area where we can see it, I'm not notified.
The way I've been doing it, I know what Kim on this last officer, I emailed Steve, and then I put in the whoever, I sent the practical in for that personnel, and then CC them, and he actually replied. So that's the only way I've been able to see they pass.
Most of our don't have the capability of turning one big document. Right, so it's great for us, we should know, right, they might be changed.
Hopefully the web form will help with that.
I'm hopeful. I've got a mentor that he's my counterpart to what I do. He does it in Missouri. And so they have a phenomenal system set up. And so I've been talking with him, and this is how they do practice. Now, granted, they actually utilize the LMS portion of a case, which didn't even know it had that, but there is a portion of it. So, but if we can streamline how you request a practical, how you submit a practical, there will be no more necessarily reaching out to Stephen or Todd. You know, if there's internal change, it won't affect you and going, well, who's in the commission today? You will go to the web form, you will request it, you will go back to the web form, you will submit it, and then we will divvy up who grades it. Technically, it really, I mean, it should go to somebody that you don't even know who's grading it. You shouldn't know that Todd's grading all your military, because you could, you know, call and be like, hey, take care of my guy.
It's all hundo, bro.
Yeah. And that's something that I've learned in talking with Alabama Fire College, because we just went down there on Friday, and there's a lot of things that we're going to try to streamline and make better, and also make it so that we're more compliant with IFSAC for the board and better.
This is more specific just to that follow up. The other problem we have is they passed the test like my guy just did. Now I see we're on the case and pass the tackle. I'll probably have to do most of it off, so about 2 weeks. Very much.
And that's where, back to the conversation that I brought up about having having practicals completed as a prerequisite to a written test. Alabama Fire College does that. You go down there, you take your class, you do your practical, you turn it in, you take your test.
Yeah.
You get your certification at the conclusion of it. Also, too, with y'all not necessarily knowing the administrative side of ACADIS and how we operate within the office, there are automated processes. So because those practical grades come in later, and they can come in literally a year later, we have to go back and we have to manually issue all that stuff. So it's time consuming, it's cumbersome, where if we had a practical grade ahead of the written test and had it plugged into the bot, and when it automatically runs with your grade, it will automatically issue your certification. So that would take a huge load off of Rob and the office staff. And there would be no more of this people calling 2, 3, 4, 5 years later going, hey, I'm coming up for promotion, and I've got my department recognized it, but my practical was never put in, and I never received my cert. And I hear that quite often, and that's really the only fix that we've got for it that would eliminate that completely. Because otherwise, there's really no way for us to track it. There's thousands of y'all, and there's 4 of them in the office.
One of the things we ran into was like offer somebody in for a commission test and not realize their CPR has expired, their card expired. Wait, I get after the 14 days it already passed. If it gets rejected, and it's too late for me to upload their new CPR card. Or they've had IS 700 and got firefighter 1 and 2. And for some reason, their IS 700 is not there, and they get kicked out for an officer class commission test because they said their IS 700 is not there. Well, how did they get firefighter 1 and 2 if the 700?
Probably some people prior to us giving, and that's all I can say is obviously we've had a changeover, and so there were people that were just putting people in classes and not necessarily checking all the prerequisites like they were supposed to.
See, if we can get something back before the deadline, you know, hey, they're missing this, we can correct that. Is all I'm asking. If we can,
The checkboxes will help alleviate
Yeah,
that.
and so I want to expound on the interpretation of the 2-week rule, or what legal and all of us have discussed, is a student has to be signed up 2 weeks prior to the test. You now have up until the testing event to get prerequisites put in. And I have told Robin that. He's aware of that. If you haven't already seen her new edited, cleaned up email. Yes, but be mindful, try to have them in. I don't train officer, I get it. Stuff happens, things fall through the crack. That happens, you're like, oh, I did not know that wasn't there.
I know that CPR got to be there,
Yes.
and I'm just going through there and say they got their CPR, and I don't look at the expiration date. I just say, yes, it's expired. I don't think anything else about it. I get a denial, and they can't test, and I'm having to explain it to the student. You can't test because you're up to date CPR part of it.
Right, because we don't have to have prerequisite for the test.
would like to discuss the interpretation of the 2-week rule. The rule states, under application, any department electing to host an examination shall contact the commission office or its representatives to schedule an examination date. That's to schedule the date for the examination. I'm the department, I want to host a test in my facility. I have to let you know 2 weeks prior to that, correct? And then the next sentence says, at the time of the examination, each individual applicant shall have a completed application submitted with appropriate documentation of necessary prerequisites. All right? That's what the rule says. And then A, under that it says, except for examinations administered at TFACA, at the conclusion of a commission-approved training course, applications shall be received by the commission a minimum of 2 weeks before any anticipated examination date. The application for examination form shall be completed in its entirety with the original signature. So that subcategory A, I believe, was misinterpreted to mean that the individual applicant who wants to take a test has to submit their application 2 weeks prior to the event. That's not what that's saying. That is saying that I have to submit the application to host the test 2 weeks prior. And I only say that because in 1B, 1C, 1D, every other one of those is about hosting the event. A is also about hosting the event. And at some point along the way, I believe someone misinterpreted that to mean that the applicant challenging the test had to submit their application 2 weeks prior to the event. Let's go with interpretation. Right. It's a misinterpreted rule, in my opinion. Legal, that'd be a question for you, I would say, but
We have went round and round on this one.
I understand why the office wants the rule, so they have time to pre-approve. I completely understand why they want to interpret it that way, but that's not the way the rule is.
So right now, what's my understanding from your policy decision tonight, fell that 14 days is the deadline for testing event and the roster. Now, the prerequisite you can submit up to the time of the testing event. If that's unclear, and we want to look at that in subcommittee levels, that's up to the commission and you guys. But right now, that's the policy decision and the implementation of the rule by this.
Because that already went into effect, because one time for the test, trying to send it in, and Robin said, I've
Well,
already sent my
This
test
has been
out.
recent. This has been a recent, so I apologize for that, but know that we are.
I understand. I appreciate you working on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And part of the 2 weeks was, part of the,
Better.
I mean, the history of forcing the 2 weeks was Cody Bump called, says, I want a test. I'm just giving you the background where this, having the apps in. Todd gets in, there's only 2 people testing. Well, the rule says you have to have 6 to host a test. If you don't submit ahead of time, how does he know that he's got 6? He drops his kid at daycare and drives out there. This is what drove it. And only 2 people. Well, guess what he does? He'll test the 2 because he's already driven out there. But that's really wasted his and you as the training officer. That's part of what drove that in the absence.
Pre-req for submitting a CPR card, shoot me an email. I can upload it right to me.
I told Heather last week, a lot of it was Cheryl's fault.
Oh, she did.
I mean, one woman too, she told me the day before, hey, Jen, you forgot paper for it. And that's where we.
And you have up until the day of the test to get your prereqs.
As of now.
It's the
And I appreciate
roster
it.
and the test.
As long as you know.
Well, and in Robin's response to you as the training officers now, she still will highlight what is missing for that individual that you have got up until the actual event to get your prerequisites in.
That just helps, and mainly that helps in recruit school, trying to get these guys finished. They have a deadline at ops. It's all we can do to get them to pass that ops. So I teach ops and I want to test them just like TFACA does, with that last day of ops. And I also don't want to lie and her say, well, just send me a roster first of the week. Well, I mean, come on now. But that'll help that problem. And I'll get over the bullet points. It gives me anxiety when I open it. All right.
And Director, you have come a long way this past month. We'll have a lot of issues that they got resolved. The previous recruit class, the answer I got was, how do I know they're gonna pass their practical on Thursday, so they can do the test on Friday? That's what we've been treated like up to now. And we've been doing this for 20 years. Same thing. It's up to the guy coming to do the test to make sure they pass it. Right, all do that. The only last thing, this is more housekeeping, I'll be like, is that same life safety educator certification I got. For whatever reason, I made an error in the date on the certificate 6 months ago when I passed the written exam. It's not mistaken, it should be like the last thing passed. But it's always. And the reason for that is, when it comes to promotion processes, you haven't passed by certain dates, you're not gonna get it, but if that starts, and we're in the middle of the trial process now, so we finish an officer practical. And it's back state was 2-3 months ago. Statewide.
So a common theme I've heard today, so I have more time on my hands now, which might be bad for the director. A cadus is a millstone, it seems to all. Now, again, replacing it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is there room for improvement in what we have and what we're putting in? Are we putting too much in it and too much reliance on it? Now I'm old, I'm going back, it's pretty easy when Randy Fox came down and we did 16 recruits practical tests. He took the sheets back to bell buckle. We didn't have a case. Now, it's supposed to be more modern than that, but it seems like we've made it, I'm just an announcer, because I've been a training officer since 2008. We've made it harder for their volunteers and paid. I thought the system, and I'm just thinking out loud, I'm not going to look for an answer, that we made it harder than it should be. It sounds like it in some aspects. Now, I'm sure you've got to have some kind of RMS, some kind of records management system to track this. The problem is, some in here are using Vector, some are using First Do, some are using Chief 360, some are, ER went out of business, so you've got to go back to ESO. We've got 18 vendors selling the software out. I don't know, I just listening, I'm honest, I got out of the training office before I've never logged into a Cadence, so I couldn't answer the first question, other than not hearing how miserable it is. So are we putting too much emphasis and too much time into it? Is there a better way?
So something you just brought up. In rule, we have to approve what digital storage they use per rule.
Yeah, because we're relying on Vector for some of the audits. Or on target,
But no,
which
even,
Vector ball.
even before Vector and Acatus married, in rule, it stated that if you were going to keep a digital file, we had to approve that digital file.
That's why I'm still old school on paper. If I have the academy teach any class for an in-service, we fill out all the academy forms, and then we fill out my in-service form. The academy forms don't get approved. So last year, intro to pumps, I submitted up front to count as in-service. When it came down to it, I'm not doing all this paperwork. So once at the end of the hour, I did something. It's just so much paperwork. I honestly had a conversation with my chief, but we just quit worrying about the $800. You don't need me. That's all I do is paperwork. By the time I put in my Excel spreadsheets, I put it in the database, the chief makes me put it in, put the cadence, make sure all the prerequisites are on upload. We do a team hazmat technician class. They're going to have the practicals. We host it. I'll do a practical for all 30 students. Then all of my students, I've got to upload them to a cadence. Got to do one there. But now if the academy comes up the road class, they do all the practice straight back in. But I still had to upload mine. If we simplify a lot of the things we talked about today,
say it is what it is, terrible. And based on my experience, 0% of changing that software, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all know physical numbers kill it.
But if we streamlined a lot of this process, we can just don't be out. Has to be out there, legislation, 14 pages of rules. You know, that's our challenge. And I know we've tried to provide accountability and integrity and raise the bar and all these things that are good, but we've overcomplicated everything too much in the process. So I think it'll be a lot more powerful. I think it's a lot more powerful if we simplify a lot of stuff. I mean, half of the stuff that we're doing.
I mean, let's say you take your two-factor law, but they take their firefighter to practical the week of the test thing, but they don't test that day for firefighter two. They gotta wait 30 days right after graduation. You can't take firefighter 1 and 2 at the same day.
30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
But if, I'm from Kansas Springs, so if I took the practical on Thursday and I walked in with Todd and I just handed him my little piece of paper that whoever signed off on it, may have been Todd, he may have been practical too, because the staff can't do their own practical. Even the TFAC, yeah. So if I walk into the test and I have my little piece of paper, I should be able to test. And I didn't have time to upload the case. I'm just going. Again, she may be in trouble now that I have more time. Thinking about some of this stuff. How do we make it work?
Make it more customer. Back to the test. Here's the rules of proctors have been given. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. If I submit you for a test for practical, and he shows up and is not on that roster, he can't physically contact the right person on the phone to verify he gets permission. He cannot give my guy a test. They're sent home. Okay. I've gotten where I take screenshots before I can submit of what I'm submitting. Because once I submit them for a test, all I know is they're scheduled for a test. Not that I submitted them for firefighter 1 and 2 practice. Yep. I physically take screenshots before I can submit it. And even if I show him that, if he can't get this person on the phone at Belleville that day, this person is getting sent home. And it's costing me promotions. It doesn't happen as much as it used to. In my case, for example, when they rescheduled after they canceled me the third time, they only rescheduled it for the firefighter 1 practice. So Steve called after the first call off the bill, the approval. Hey, I want to see where you did it. I said, go back with the they canceled the mistake. So we all make mistakes. I'm not the one that's getting punished. And on a case, I just have a question to throw out there. I was told by every commissioner that did online audits through CADIS that you never do that again. I'm wrong in that.
Never again.
Then why do I have to submit everything in CADIS?
That's for the checks and balances.
The audits.
No.
Not everybody,
No, no, no,
only
hold on,
10% get audited.
Hold on. We are not going to do online, meaning the team's auditing.
Is it in regulation that every department education program has to update every class?
I'm sorry.
Is it in the regulations that every department that does education has to put their classes all in the? Because when y'all audited, I was told, well, the reason we got to do something in person and still come see you is because everybody don't use case.
The current rules state that you have to put your in-service in a records management system. I've argued this.
There is no regulation or law that says I have to put my education system in the case.
I argued this with the previous director because I was told that I had to put all my stuff in a cadence. There is not a rule that states I have to.
We don't specifically say a CADIS in rule, because what happens if the CADIS is not there tomorrow?
So does that have to pull it into your software? Or I have to just have records? And keep the records for up to 5 years.
Yes. So EIP records is 5 years.
Yeah, I'll back to you.
Because in another part of the rule, it says 3 years. But for EIP, it's 5 years. Because when we come and audit you, we can go back those previous 5.
But where are the rules that say I have to hold it to this, waste my time doing it? It's not used.
Oh, and a slight addition to that, some of you have heard from me, you know, if I go to send my group to a 40-hour class at the academy, back education certificate, I still have to do substitution forms and re-upload all that, even though it's already indicated, because it wasn't part of my plan. So, you know, one of the things that can make life a lot simpler on both parties is if the verified training already indicated, you know, it should be pretty easy, you know, to count that training towards 30 hours.
Secondly, on behalf of my chief, 30-something substitution forms set up his desk for 2 weeks, waiting for him to have time to sign them all. If he's got to sign this attestation, sit there, right? Why does my chief have to sign for someone to take an academy class that I didn't sign it? Or go to a conference, it's already approved. It's just some of the little things we've been asking about for years that make it easier, save us time.
I like the Metro approach for a few years, no substitutions. You either came to the class or you didn't get it. Those were beautiful, those years.
Working on it.
That's one answer to that. Yeah. I think it's to discourage substitution back at the beginning. That's it. All right, we'll do volunteer high school, UT Center, Cherokee High School. UT Volunteer Center has all their correlation sheets in there. Pretty plain. I think he's just standing up his office. Book committee, subcommittee, adding another person, item J, tomorrow. Then date of future meeting, which is April, we'll have that date. Anything else? We've had 4 hours today.
That's what we said.
Y'all learned it today.
We put on the agenda,
Yeah, that's J.
Okay.
That's subcommittee. And we're actually going to have to add under A, West Tennessee Middle, and Travis thinks we didn't actually approve some of these Tennessee ones. 4 of them. I think they can be patched. No one can be patched. That's okay. Has the public had enough time to comment and suggest today?
I believe so.
I believe so. This is a long workshop, but hopefully productive. Like I said, I think the new director is, and I'm the new chairman, we'd like to get it more efficient. Again, remember the balance I started with, balance of efficient and easier for the customer, but there is accountability. People go, well, my department only gets $4,000. Well, the program is approaching $10 million. So there's no way we can't have strings tied. I wish we didn't, but there's no way to get around that. So there has to be some measure of accountability in there. And look, they assigned 2 lawyers to us. So, the 3 if you can't leave. The boss. And Assistant Commissioner of Commerce and Insurance. So it's government at its best sometimes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, we're adjourned.
I was waiting for you to take a breath.